The Pierce County Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program offers free preschool to qualified children ages 3 to 4 by August 31st. Our program prepares children both socially and emotionally for kindergarten and beyond.
Studies show early childhood education is linked to greater success in life.
Families can check eligibility and apply online at piercecountywa.gov/preschool.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Most water around here ends up in Puget Sound, and whatever's in that water, like thousands of gallons of yard chemicals. So let's get together and help save the sound, because Puget Sound starts here.
Good afternoon. No, good morning. I'm going to call to order Rules and Operations meeting. It is a special meeting. We are starting at 11:01. Today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2025. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Denson.
Excused.
Councilmember Herrera. Here. Councilmember Ayala. Here. Councilmember Hitchin.
Here.
You have 3 members present.
With 3 members present, we do have a quorum. Our agenda today, because this is a special meeting, cannot be changed or amended, so we will consider it approved. And that brings us to the meeting schedule for the week of March 24th through the 28th. Ms. Long.
All right, thank you and good morning. This is your meeting schedule for March 24th through the 28th. On Monday, the 24th, beginning at 10 a.m., you have your Rules and Operations Committee meeting. You'll be approving the meeting schedule for the week of March 31st through April 4th and the council agenda for April 1st. There are 2 proposals on that day's agenda. The first is our 2025-123, and this is confirming Robin Vasquez as the Director of the Human Resources Department. Next is our 2025-120, and this is authorizing the executive to enter into a 1-year contract for publishing legal notices for Pierce County. And that has, both of those have an April 1st final hearing date. At 11 a.m. is Monday study session, and I'm seeing just the usual agenda items, although there is 1 addition under other business. Actually 2, excuse me. The first is the School Impact Fee Program Review Update with community attributes. And then there is an executive session that morning as well. At 1:30 is your Public Safety Committee, and there is 1 presentation on that agenda. That's the Pierce County Superior Court Interpreter Services. And that will be presented by presiding Judge Susan Adams, and then Chris Gaddis, the court administrator, and Jovi Lee, who is the court interpreter and coordinator. On Tuesday at March 25th, beginning at 9:30, you have an Economic and Infrastructure Development Committee meeting. There is 1 proposal, and you have 3 presentations on that agenda. The proposal is our 2025-112. This is approving the 2025 Pierce County Historic Preservation Grant Fund disbursement as recommended by the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission. That has an April 8th final hearing date. Next on the agenda is the 2024 Historic Preservation Grants Update. That will be with Planning and Public Works. Next you have the Historic and Honorary Signage Report, also with Planning and Public Works. And last is the study session on Vision Zero Draft Plan. That's pursuant to Resolution R 2022-118. That also will be presented by Planning and Public Works staff. Your noon Tuesday study session is canceled for that week. So the next meeting on Tuesday is your 3 p.m. regular council meeting. On Wednesday, March 26th, there is a special performance audit committee. It's a special meeting. It's starting later. It has a 10:30 a.m. start time. On that agenda is the proposed contract for the juvenile court study. Then you have the proposed 2024 through 2025 work plan. Next is the proposed scope of works for the parks funding study. And then you'll be talking about the 2024 annual report, and finally the establishment of that committee's regular meeting time. And that is the meeting schedule for March 24th through the 28th.
Thank you, Ms. Long. And for the record, Councilmember Denson has joined us. Thank you. Are there any questions on the meeting schedule for the 24th to the 28th? Seeing none, Vice Chair Herrera for a motion.
Chair, I move approval of the meeting schedule for the week of March 24th through 28th, 2025.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the March 24th to 28th meeting schedule as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The schedule has been adopted. That brings us to item number 5, which is the council agenda for March 25th. Ms. Long.
Thank you. So this is your council agenda for the regular meeting on March 25th. We'll start with your consent agenda. You have 1 item for introduction and scheduling, and that's our 2025-124. This is approving additional positions in the Aging and Disability Resources Division of the Human Services Department. You'll be referring this to rules and setting the final for April 1st. Under final action, you have 3 confirmation resolutions. First up is R 2025-125. This is confirming the appointment of 2 new members to the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. Next is R 2025-126, and this is confirming the appointment of 2 new members to the Pierce County Conservation Futures and Open Space Citizens Advisory Board. And last is our 2025-127. This is confirming the reappointment of 3 existing members to the Pierce County Conservation Futures and Open Space Citizens Advisory Board. Moving now to Section 7, you have 2 proclamations on this agenda. The first is a proclamation of the Council and Executive designating March 29th, 2025 as Vietnam War Veterans Day in Pierce County. And this was requested by Council members Herrera and Denson. Next is a proclamation of the Council and Executive designating March 24th through the 28th, 2025 as First Responder Wellness Week in Pierce County. And that was requested by Council members Hitchin and Denson. And there are no resolutions and there are no ordinances. So those are agenda items for the March 25th council meeting.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions on the council agenda for the 25th? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Chair, I move approval of the council agenda for March 25th, 2025 as presented.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting agenda for March 25th. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The meeting agenda has been adopted. And that brings us to item number 6, which is proposal R 2025-114. Can the clerk please read?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Proposal number R 2025-114, a resolution of the Pierce County Council ratifying the sale of certain county-owned surplus real property located at 713 Southwest 353rd Place, Federal Way, Washington, commonly referred to as 713 Southwest 353rd Place, and consisting of land and improvements on King County tax parcel number 06623100610.
Thank you. Mr. Boki to brief.
Thank you, Chair Hitchin, Paul Boki, Council staff. This property is a single-family home in Federal Way, Washington. It was seized by Pierce County Sheriff's Department on September 2019 under the authority of the Uniform Controlled Substances Act. The property was found to have been used to grow marijuana plants, and the title was acquired by the Pierce County Sheriff's Department pursuant to a judgment of forfeiture entered by the King County Superior Court on December 10th, 2020. The judgment was under appeal until October 21st, 2022. I'd remind the council that Pierce County has a 2-step process in selling real estate that we have. And the first one is that you declare by ordinance that the property is surplus and allow the executive to go out and try to sell the property. You did that in Ordinance 2024-502, which was passed by the County Council on February 27th, 2024. This resolution ratifies the sale of the property to Travis Edwards and Madison Moore for the sales price of $718,000. It does have a tax assessed value of $722,000. It is a 2,510 square foot house on an 8,762 foot square lot. That's as according to the King County Assessor's Office. I sent you some additional information that there were some questions about the sales price and kind of how some of the history, and that came from Mr. Steve Wambach from our Facilities Management Department. He is here in the audience, and we also have Mr. Mike Gonzalez from Facilities on the Zoom.
Thank you for that. I'm going to open this up to questions from any of my colleagues. So we'll start with Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize if you've emailed me this information, Mr. Boki. I'm a little bit drowning in emails, so it might have gotten buried. But I would love to just have a description of how this property was marketed and ultimately how the sellers came to find it and secured it, how that all works.
Mr. Wambach.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Steve Wambeck. I'm the Deputy Director of the Facilities Management Department. I'll start off by saying that the department requests that the council go ahead and approve Resolution R 2025-114. To answer Councilmember Denson's questions, Facilities Management listed the property with a broker named Shannon Mayers of Better Properties in Summit. We did that right after the council declared the property a surplus through Ordinance 2024-502 just about a year ago. We chose Better Property Summit because they are under contract with Pierce County from RFP 21-120, which is a countywide contract for residential broker services. Our Planning and Public Works Department is the primary user of that contract when they acquire properties for right-of-way that they then resell later on. So the county has a contract for residential listings. So we chose Ms. Mayers with Better Properties. The property was listed on the multiple listing service. It was MLS listing 221-3588. And it was listed on March 28th of 2024 with an asking price of $775,000. At that time, the listing price was 18.7% above the assessment for tax year 2024. In 2024, King County had assessed that property at $653,000. So again, we listed it on March 28th. After the property sat on the market and we received feedback from agents that had been showing the property, both on the buyer side and the seller side, the county authorized price reductions to $759,000 on the 20th of June, and then we lowered the price again to $718,000 on October 3rd. We received a offer of $718,000 on November 19th in response to that last reduction. At some point in 2024, King County did reassess the property for payment of 2025 taxes. They upped the assessment to $722,000. I took a pretty deep dive into King County's website on Friday, and unlike Pierce County's assessor treasurer, King County doesn't tell you when they sent out their property tax assessment notices. We can look on our website says when we send out our assessment notices, they only give you the date that they send out their tax notice. So I don't know when it was publicly made available that they reassessed the property higher. But we relisted it at $718,000 on October 3rd, received an offer on that on November 19th. Some of the reasons why we lowered the price twice and some of the feedback we received, first and most important is that we did have to disclose that the property had been used for the manufacture of illegal drugs. And because it had been used for the manufacture of illegal drugs, specifically cannabis, if you have any familiarity with a typical grow operation, these are they confine the space so that you have maximum heat and right moisture. So because of the method of grow, we had to do a fungal investigation on the house to make sure that there wasn't mold running rampage. While we found only minimal mold that could be cleaned with household cleaner, we did have to disclose that too, so we took a hit on the price because of that investigation. Feedback from the real estate community pointed out that the interior of the house was dated. It had an old roof, a steep driveway, and a small backyard compared to comparable properties. There are also very few true comps in that area of Federal Way that the real estate community could use for coming up with comps. So those are some things. The other thing is about process. It is not as easy to purchase a property from a government as it is to a private transaction. We don't use, if you've ever purchased a residential property, you know there's a lot of paperwork that you have to sign. We don't use any of the standard forms. We can't, Pierce County can, under advice of multiple deputy prosecuting attorneys, we don't use any of the standard multiple listing service documentation. We create separate contracts that are more of the flavor of a government contract. So that adds process, that adds uncertainty, that adds time. And so compared to sales between private parties, prospective purchasers had to experience delays caused by this process. As I think Mr. Boki mentioned, and I mentioned, we received an offer in November, and here we are. By the time the council has final authorization on this, it will be April. So there's a cost to time. So those were all the reasons why we're not getting an offer 722. And then it's also mentioned in the fiscal note, but I want to be very transparent about this. After the 718 was was the offer price, we are crediting back a $9,300 concession to the purchaser because we discovered a leaking roof. So, so in the end, the county will net less than the 718. I believe I answered all of Councilmember Denson's question. I'll be happy to answer any follow-ups.
You did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for those questions. Any further questions? Councilmember Ayala, Committee Member Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Just one quick question, and please forgive my ignorance. After sale, this property is part of Pierce County or King County?
This property is in the city of Federal Way in King County.
Okay.
Which leads to an obvious question. Why did the Pierce County Sheriff seize a property in another county? I don't have all the details. I have a recollection from a previous council meeting, and this property was tied to an investigation in Pierce County that involved our Sheriff's Department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the questions. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'm going to open this up for public hearing on Resolution 2025-114. There are no members of the public in chambers, so we will go online. Mr. Wainsbury.
Yes, Madam Chair. For any members of the public who wish to provide comments on proposal number R 2025-114, press the raise hand icon on Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And Madam Chair, it looks like we have no hands at this time.
With no hands raised, we will close the public comment and bring it back before the committee. Any further comments? Otherwise, I'll be looking for a motion. Vice Chair Herrera?
Yes, Chair, I move proposal number R 2025-114 to be forwarded to the full council with a due pass recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded that we forward R 2025-114 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will forward this to the full council with a due pass recommendation. That brings us to item number 7, which is resolution or R 2025-119. Can the clerk please read?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Proposal number R 2025-119, a resolution of the Pierce County Council authorizing the Pierce County Executive to execute a real estate purchase and sale agreement.
Thank you. And this also goes to Mr. Boki.
Thank you, Chair Hitchin, Paul Boki, Council staff. This resolution will authorize the county executive to enter into a purchase and sale agreement to acquire real property to be used by the Sheriff's Department as a property room. Presently, the Sheriff's Department operates multiple property rooms. One of those rooms is located at the county's Annex West building in Tacoma. Expansion of the election center necessitates that the property room be relocated. After exploring alternative sites, the recommendation from the executive is to purchase a 31,229 square foot warehouse on 1.76 acres at 5950 North 9th Street for $7.4 million to meet the sheriff's long-term storage needs. So the property room project is included in the 2024-25 capital improvement plan and the 2024-2025 budget, which includes $10.25 million. So for the purchase price, $7.4 million, property improvements, $2.5 million, and due diligence and engineering, about $350,000. Funds will come from the REIT Capital Improvement Fund, and Mr. Wambach is here to speak to this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Boki. Mr. Wambach.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, I'm still Steve Wambeck, the Deputy Director of Facilities Management, and I am here with a very unusual request. We are asking the council to indefinitely postpone this resolution, and I will explain why we have this request. So as Mr. Boki mentioned in his introduction, the council previously approved in the adopted 2024-25 budget, biennial budget, as well as the capital facilities plan, as well as the supplemental budget that the council voted on last fall. This project to acquire a building for a sheriff's property room to relocate from the Annex West that would allow for an expansion of the election center operated by the Pierce County Auditor at Annex West. So this is all part of a series of moving parts. The Sheriff's Department worked with us last year and in 2023 to develop criteria through which facilities management, with the help of a private sector broker, could identify suitable warehouse spaces. So we needed to identify a space that had about 30,000 workable square feet so that we could move the property room where the sheriff holds on to evidence for trial. The property room is also roughly 50% of the capacity of the property room is used by the City of Tacoma's Police Department, and small portions are used by Eatonville and one other community that is escaping me right now. So we have a property room half used by the county, half by the City of Tacoma. After few false starts. There were lots of warehouses that we took a look at, but the one on North 9th Street behind the Highlands Hills Shopping Center seemed to be the most suitable option. And our broker provided a letter of interest on behalf of the county executive to the seller of that property in late November, early December of 2024. The normal next steps in the process, I stress the normal steps in the process, would have been for the county executive to sign a purchase and sale agreement. The county would have put down an earnest money deposit of about $250,000, and we would have started our due diligence activities. Had we been satisfied with the results of the due diligence study, we would have closed on the sale. If we weren't satisfied, we would have canceled the agreement and received our deposit back. For this sale, rather than immediately instead of immediately proceeding to a purchase and sale agreement, the county and the seller entered into a right of entry agreement that would allow us to conduct due diligence on the property without the benefit of a real estate contract. We added that step to the process and changed our order because we changed the order because we wanted to add a step to the process. We wanted the council to be able to be involved in the decision about purchasing the property. It is a little unusual for one elected official, the county executive, to be purchasing a property for a different elected official, the county sheriff. And when we were putting all this together, negotiating with the seller in October, we did not know the results of the 2024 election. We did know that there was going to be regardless of the election results, we knew there was going to be a new executive. We knew there was going to be a new council chair. We knew there was going to be a new sheriff. We knew there would be new council members. We knew that there was going to be a lot of uncertainty, so we added a step to the process so that we could mitigate that uncertainty and be transparent to the private party that is selling the parcel. We did not necessarily want to rush into a signed contract that we then had to walk back, not because of a due diligence issue, but because the administrative and political environment changed, that a new sheriff or a new executive may not have wanted to proceed with the transaction the way that the previous administrations did. So that's what we added a step to the process for that. We did start due diligence in December. We obtained an appraisal, much like you would in purchasing a residential property, and the appraisal supported the $7.4 million asking price. We then proceeded into more detailed due diligence, kicking the tires, so to speak, to make sure that the cost of moving to this building, both in the short and medium term for operations, wouldn't bust the budget. What we determined through work in January and February was that the cost to renovate this specific building to suit the specific needs of a sheriff's property room was higher than anticipated and budgeted. In fact, as Mr. Boki mentioned in his introduction, we identified a $7.4 million purchase price and roughly $2.5 million to outfit the building. This was going to be high capacity storage, racks. The building had an 18-foot height. We'd be building racks up to for storage, the equipment for that. That was all part of the anticipated $2.5 million. What we identified was approximately $7 million of improvement, additional improvements that would need to be made over the next, say, 2 to 3 biennia that would have had to come out of our budget. Things like a new roof, things like some of the landscaping, some of the walls. The building had showed some age. There are plenty of uses for that building that the seller could probably get that wouldn't require that level of investment, and we probably would not have had to do most of that on day zero. But as many council members who have been around for a couple of years have known, and as the new council members will learn, Pierce County has run a historic deficit in our building maintenance functions. We have, in our county city building complex alone, we've identified $300 million or so of improvements that should have been made years ago that have accumulated over time. To buy a building and incur a substantial deferred maintenance deficit on that building on day zero did not seem prudent for us. Other private sector purchasers with different end uses intended for the facility, different risk versus reward calculations would proceed differently with this, but for us, this just does not pencil out for us for long term. So we are not moving forward with this acquisition. The facilities management department is working on exploring more cost-effective and less risky alternatives. We are meeting with the Sheriff's Department the week of March 24th to re-explore options and determine whether the new administration in the Sheriff's Department has some different criteria in mind that we could follow. We've been working closely with the auditor since this impacts the election center, the finance department, because the general services warehouse is in the same building and they were going to be impacted. And of course, we're working closely with the county exec's office. We do hope that we are able to bring back a concept as to where we go next. I'd say that'd be fleshed out in 6 to 8 weeks. So we're going to take some time to make sure that we don't repeat this surprise. Frankly, I'd rather have the surprise before we purchase the building than buy a building and then find out the roof, the walls, etc. So thank you for allowing me to provide some context on this, and I want to thank Hugh Taylor. He's provided very thoughtful counsel to us multiple times as we've worked through this process. For whatever reason, this resolution broke the legislative tracking system as well. So Hugh and the staff not only helped us get this one to be live, but also provided some great advice as we came up with this unusual situation. So again, we're asking that you indefinitely postpone this. I believe that is the correct terminology rather than reject. And yeah, this has been a first for me. This is the first time I've ever had to come before the council asking you to toss aside a resolution that I wrote. So thank you for your patience with us.
Thank you. I'm going to look to Ms. Long to just clarify, do we need to do a public hearing and all of the normal things, or?
No, if the motion is to postpone indefinitely, you can take a voice vote and you do not have to take the public comment. It just kind of keeps it in limbo in committee And then if and when it is ready to go, if it is at a later date, it'll come back in committee. If, according to your rules, if nothing happens to it at all within 2 years, it just dies on its own. So that was the only other thing we would need to do if that motion passed, was to add a motion to your council agenda to rescind the final hearing date that has already been set for April 1st.
Okay, I will look to my colleagues to see if we have any additional questions. Vice Chair Herrera.
Thank you. Just had a question on, because just before you were trying to sell a property, you talked about some of the issues why it's worth less than it might be because of degradation of the property. Was there any, did you say that you negotiated a roof? I mean, if the roof was going to cost $500,000 to replace, could we negotiate that down, or what was that part?
So we did explore that. So as the costs that we identified to make this building suitable over and above outfitting, that number starts at about $7 million. The roof was only part of that, and that would be, that $7 million was exclusive of quote unquote soft costs, the cost of design and applying for permits and all those things. So you're looking at somewhere about another 40% over that. So would be $9.8 million of work for a $7.4 million building, so we did not engage in a serious conversation about our price reduction because that's still the deferred maintenance that we would have been assuming was greater than the value of the building. So I don't see how this, if it was just one or two things, like if you're buying, like the house that we are selling in Federal Way that the council member mentioned, leaky roof, we identified a $9,300 credit. What we identified to make the building suitable for the sheriff was, we're talking orders of magnitude greater than that. So this building, we did not see an appropriate way to try to negotiate with the seller on that.
Got it.
Thank you for the question.
But are you confident that we can find, I mean, basically what you're saying, this is not the right shovel ready. There's probably something better that's closer to getting it that might cost less. You're confident in that?
Well, I will be more confident to answer that question after we have an opportunity to sit down with the sheriff, with Sheriff Swank and his administration, to review what his team's criteria are. Sheriff Troyer and his administrative team had outlined some criteria that were really focused on identifying a building to purchase inside the corporate limits of Tacoma. The new sheriff and his team may have some different criteria for us to explore. And maybe, depending on where they want to go, we might maybe a lease in the right type of building with the right type of internal security could work. Maybe something further afield. I believe that when we were here for a previous conversation, I believe Councilmember Morrell, or I think it was Councilmember Morrell, asked about the feasibility of locating this in Frederickson, where a lot of warehouse space has recently been built. So we will have that conversation with Sheriff Swank and his team and determine the appropriate next steps to meet their needs as our customer agency.
And one last question, if I may. The delays of this, is it going to delay the other work for the election office, and about how much would that extra cost us?
Well, I think what we're trying to do now is to take a look at some fresh options. Again, for folks who are watching from home and for the benefit of Councilmember Ayala and new council members, the election center project has actually been one that has been on the books dating back pre-pandemic. When Julie Anderson was the county's auditor, there was an exploration of leasing a building in the south part of Tacoma to serve as an election center. And we went through a number of iterations on that one. Then did a study of a number of different options to determine building out an election center at Annex West was way to go, but then there was no way to get that done before the 2024 election, so we kept status quo. We have a little bit of time before the next big election in 2028, so the 6 to 8 weeks that we're taking now to reassess how all these projects fit together will allow us to then come back with what I'm hoping for is a tighter budget and a tighter timeline that meets as many of the department's needs as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for the due diligence. I appreciate it. I think one of the reasons I guess glad that we figured out ahead of time is that this was going to be our evidence room, and if a leaky roof in an evidence room sounds like a really gigantic liability issue for the county.
Yes.
So just with that in mind. So the motion we are looking for is to postpone indefinitely. So I will look to my colleagues to see if someone would entertain such a motion. Vice Chair Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. I move to postpone proposal R2025-119, postpone it indefinitely.
It's been moved and seconded that we postpone indefinitely Resolution 2025-119. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and we will postpone this one. Thank you, Mr. Wambach and Mr. Boki. That brings us to item number 8 this morning. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Hugh Taylor, council staff. I'm here this morning to present a hiring recommendation to the Rules and Operations Committee. So pursuant to the administrative guidelines for the Office of the Pierce County Council, the Chief of Staff has a responsibility for making recommendations on all hiring decisions to the Rules and Operations Committee. As the council members are aware, there's currently a vacancy in the position of policy analyst, senior policy analyst in the human services area. That vacancy exists due to a recent departure of a staff member. A recruitment to fill the vacancy was initiated in January of this year. A number of very qualified candidates or applicants submitted materials. Those applicants were reviewed by a hiring manager, Carrie Waterland, who's this staff member would work with, as well as an interview panel. The interview panel recommended that the council hire Mary Connolly for the position of policy analyst. A number of you may be familiar with Ms. Connolly. She is currently a social services program specialist for SHAPE, the South Sound Housing Affordability Partners. She currently works in the portfolio that deals with the creation and preservation of affordable, attainable, and accessible housing in Pierce County. So her current position with SHAPE and the portfolio that she works with aligns very well with the needs of the council regarding the human services analyst position. Ms. Connolly has additional educational background and experience that also align well in the area of housing and human services. By all indications, she'll be a very valued addition to the council team. So it's my recommendation that the Rules and Operations Committee approve the hiring of Mary Connolly as a policy analyst, range 26, step 7. I will note that Ms. Connolly has not worked directly with a legislative body previously, so she'll need some time to understand or learn the legislative process, but I believe her education experience more than warrants the placement in this role, and that she'll quickly learn the council's process and be able to perform the duties of the policy analyst for the council. So that's my recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, and thank you to the members of the hiring committee that went through. And from my recollection, we had quite a few people apply to that, so which is great to have a wide number of candidates to look at. So is there any comments or questions from my colleagues or feedback? Okay. I'm not hearing any. I don't have any questions. I'm just excited to have a full team. Let's go. And so I will look to one of my colleagues to make a motion. Yeah, we don't, it doesn't have to go to the council. We are doing this today. Vice Chair Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Taken into consideration of the hiring recommendation, so I propose a motion to approve hiring Mary Connolly to the position of the policy analyst effective March 31st, 2025. Do I need to mention this step?
No, sir.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve hiring Mary Connolly to the position of policy analyst effective March 31st, 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mary, and sorry, Jason. So, is there any further business before us this morning? Seeing no other business before us this morning, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.